Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Robbie Rhino, and in today's video we'll be taking a look at the British Tier 8 Premium Heavy Tank that was released last week, the Charlemagne, and it's taken me a little bit of time to get this review out because I was on vacation last week, so I had some pre-recorded content going out, but now I'm back, I'm able to keep up to date with all the latest releases, and I'll be pushing out my backlog of content that I have for all of you. So we'll get stuck straight into the Charlemagne, and I think straight off the bat I'd like to say that this tank is probably going to be slept on by a lot of players, and it's got a bad reputation and probably still does on PC. That's as far as I can tell from their content creators, but it's actually a relatively decent tank, especially if you are a more experienced player. Having said that, it's extremely costly. It's 14,900 for the top bundle and 10,190 gold for the base bundle, so you might want to wait until it comes into like a season perhaps, or it's a personal offer, because you know we all know that they like to do that with the seasons and tanks that are new releases, and compared to the wheeled vehicle that is coming out today as we speak, it's about 3,000 gold more, so you might want to save your money for something that suits you a little better, but hopefully this review helps you with that. Being a premium, it earns 50% extra silver and it has a 10% XP bonus as well. In terms of the hit points, it's 1500, which is quite average for tier 8 heavy. It's the same as the 50 TP prototype, which is the Polish tier 8 premium heavy tank, and it's a very good comparison to this tank. It's got a strong turret, relatively good all-round armour for a tier 8 heavy, a hard-hitting gun with 440 alpha damage. So yeah, if you like that tank, you're probably going to like this one as well. In terms of its view range, it has 380 meters view range, which is quite nice for a tier 8 heavy. It's 10 meters more than the 50 TP prototype anyway. In terms of the mobility, it's not too bad for a heavy. It is quite sluggish. It's got a 750 horsepower engine with a 16.67 power to weight ratio, so you're going to get up to your top speed of 35 kilometers an hour forwards relatively quickly, but you're not going to go any further than that, and you are going to struggle going up hills. You have a 15 kilometers an hour backward speed, which isn't too bad. It's better than the 50 TP prototype. Your traverse isn't great though. It's 26 degrees a second on your hull and 28 degrees a second on your turret, so you might want to negate that with some equipment and commander skills, which I'll get onto in just a little bit. So the fun bit of every tank, it's the gun, and this is quite a unique gun. It's a 120mm gun, but it's called a low velocity gun, and that just basically means the shell velocity is very slow on its standard AP rounds. It just so happens that the premium rounds have actually quite decent shell velocity. Maybe they just want you to fire the gold, but who knows, maybe it's a bit of a conspiracy. So the alpha damage on this gun is 440 on its standard AP and premium APCR, and its alpha damage on its HE is 530, with the penetration being 220 on the standard AP, which is very nice, and a whopping 270mm of penetration on the premium APCR. So, you know, if you feel like you're going to hit most of your shots and you're a bit of a premium scrub like me, you might want to carry a plethora of rounds and plenty of premium APCR. The penetration on the HE is only 60, and I don't carry any at all, but you might want to carry one or two for base resets. And for light tanks, in terms of the shell velocity, it's 597 meters a second on the standard AP and the HE, which is extremely slow, and if you have trouble leading targets, this might not be the gun for you. If you're a more experienced player, it's still going to be very hard to hit moving targets, especially at ranges. On the premium APCR, however, it's 924 meters a second, which is closer to the sort of 1,000 meters a second mark, which is a kind of standard marker of a relatively good gun to use at sort of medium to long ranges. It's got a DPM of 1579.6, which is extremely slow, and a base reload of 16.7 seconds, which is a second more than the 50 TP prototype if you want to use my comparison. It's not great news either in terms of the gun handling. It has a 3.5 second aim time and a 0.44 accuracy, so it's a very derpy gun. It does have 10 degrees of gun depression, however, and 15 degrees of gun elevation, meaning it's very good on a ridgeline, and you won't run out of ammunition. It carries 60 rounds, especially with this reload, unless you have some kind of world record kind of game. You're not going to run out of rounds. I'll talk about the armour a little later on, but I'll go straight now into my equipment and commander setup. So I run gun stabilizer because of that terrible accuracy, I run advanced loader because of the horrific reload, and I run advanced optics because I want to be able to spot them myself should my teammates be camping out in the back, which is ironic because we're on Prokhorovka for our first game. And on my commander I run Sixth Sense, Born Leader, Rapid Loading, Steady Aim, Rapid Aim, Snapshot, Run and Gun, Situational Awareness and Track Mechanic. A lot of gun handling skills there to get this gun handling as good as it can be. Situational Awareness to help my view range a little bit more, and Track Mechanic because I want to be able to repair it as quick as possible because I don't want to be sitting out in front of my opponents and losing hit points. So with my equipment and commander setup, I now have a 464 meters view range, which is really nice for a tier 8 heavy. I have a DPM of 2032, which isn't great, but it's not too bad when you slap quite hard like you do in this tank for 440 alpha damage. I have a 12.97 second reload with a 3.36 aim time and a 0.39 accuracy, so it's still relatively derpy, but if you let it aim in fully and you sort of choose your shots wisely, you can make this gun work. And with the nice armour that it has, that I'll talk about in the next replay, you can have some pretty decent games. So as you can see in the gameplay in the background, we were on Prokhorovka, or we still are. We've picked up 2.7k assistance, 2.5k direct damage and blocked 1000, so it's a good sort of showcase of what you can do with the view range, with the armour, and you know, you don't have to hit too many shots to get up a reasonable amount of damage. It's a very close game. As you can see, we are up by one tank. It's 5 against 4. However, this is going to go south pretty quickly. As I head south on the map, I only have 193 hit points left, and I was a little bit confident in my armour and a little bit too confident that my team were going to take this game down. I'm coming here to the corner to try and spot the tank that was shooting me as I was on the E line, and there I spot that medium tank there, and I'm going to try and come in from an angle where I'm able to use my turret armour. I'm waiting for my teammate to come in. I thought that we were going to go in from different angles, so I'm trying to change up the angle now, but here you can see the sort of slow mobility. My medium tank is going to go in, it's going to rush in. I maybe could have communicated with the radio command, and this is where it could be useful, sort of using voice chat with people. But he's gone in and he's losing his hit points to this Panther 2, who is a very good player. There's a wreck in the way now. He's covering himself with the wreck. He's taken out this Stone Cold TL1PC, I think it's called. And unfortunately for me, I'm just going to get the one shell in. I was hoping to roll. I think even if I rolled sort of normal for 440 or slightly higher, I would have finished that Panther 2 off. But alas, I didn't, and the Panther 2 finished me off. So GG's to that Panther 2. He carried his team there, and as you can see, he's got 4 kills, so fair play to him. But this was a nice sort of first sort of replay. This is one of my first games in the tank, and it just shows, you know, if you played a little bit better than I did and make slightly better choices, we would have been able to take this one down. So I'll skip on to the MVP screen, and then we'll hop on into the second replay and we'll talk about the armour. So I'll see you at the MVP screen. So as you can see there, we unfortunately didn't manage to take that result down. We finished with 2.9k direct damage, 2.7k assistance. We got 1 kill, finished second on our team, and we made 130,000 silver. I believe that's without a booster as well. So we're going to head on now into the second replay and talk about the armour, so see you there in a second. So we're now into the second replay of the video, and we're here on Overlord. And this is a very good map for this tank because it has lots of ridge lines, and it allows me to set up a defensive location here on the beach, use my hard hitting gun, good turret armour and good gun depression. And I'm going to sit here underneath the cap circle on the encounter game mode and stop the advance of the enemies coming down the beach from the south. And this is probably the only time that I'd recommend going to the beach, is when you spawn where I've spawned in a slower heavy tank, because I'm not going to get to the battle up the top as quick as I'd like, and I want to try and get some damage in and stop the advance of the enemies on the beach. So I said I'll talk about the armour in the last replay, so I'm going to go over that for you now. And the first thing to note is the lower plate is a surprise. It absolutely shocked me that the lower plate is actually stronger when you were looking at this tank straight on than the upper plate is. So the lower plate is 168mm thick. However, if you were looking at this tank straight on, it's got an effective armour value of 240mm, and if you angle this tank at 45 degrees, that goes up to 270mm of effective armour on the lower plate, which is actually really good. Of course, if you overexpose on a ridgeline, they're going to be looking up into it and go through it with ease, but that actually shocked me. So yeah, don't shoot the lower plate if you're looking at this straight on if you have poor penetration. In terms of the upper plate, it's a 130mm plate, but looking at this tank straight on, it's only got an effective armour value of 215mm. If you angle, that only goes up to about 235 to 300mm of effective armour, and if you use your gun depression, that goes up substantially to 300mm. So if you're looking at this straight on, shoot the side that is closest to you, and don't shoot the lower plate. The upper plate will be easier for you to go through. And that brings us on to the turret armour, which you're going to be relying on mainly in this tank, using the hold down sort of gameplay and playstyle that I recommend in this tank. So the strongest part of the turret is 170mm on the front, 80 on the sides and 70 on the rear. That 170mm is only a small band around the mantlet. If you're looking at this mantlet straight on, the armour values are only about 190 to 220mm straight on, so it's relatively strong but not overly strong. However, the cheeks of this turret are really well angled and slope backwards. They're 130mm plates, effective of anywhere between 240mm to 340mm, depending on the sort of positioning of the turret. So obviously if the turret's angled, then you shoot the flattest part, the part closest to you, and that will be the best chance you have of going through. With gun depression, you can get some crazy effective armour on this turret of anywhere from 200mm to 400 to 500mm in places, and that 200mm is where you want to shoot. And if you want to know where that is, it is to the bottom left and bottom right of the turret. There are a couple of 200mm sort of parts of the turret, even when this tank is using the full extent of its 10 degrees of gun depression, that you want to shoot. Other than that, you want to go for the cupola, which is between 60 and 80mm. So yeah, if you're shooting this tank, cupola, upper plate if it's straight on, if it's using its gun depression and just showing you the turret to the left and right, to the lower left and right I should say, of the turret is your best chance of going through it. If you can't hit the cupola, and if not, flank it, get around the sides, or wait till this tank turns its turret and you should go through it with ease. So as you can see, we've made a little defensive stay on the beach here on Overlord. We've picked up 1938 damage so far, blocking 650 and getting 560 assistance, and we've pushed forwards a little bit to see if we can push the tempo in this battle. We're fighting a T-28, which has a fairly nasty gun. Its armour isn't as good as it should be, and it's a quite weak tank, but I don't want to lose too many hit points because it's getting quite close in this battle, and I'm going to try and do my best. So I'm hoping that the T-28 tries to focus this Oni down to the right of me, and this Oni can use the hit points, and I can use my gun to slap shell after shell into the lower plate of this T-28. However, the T-28 shoots me, and that's probably the wise move because the T-28 recognises that I'm the biggest threat. However, he doesn't have a turret, misses that shot, and the Tiger P shuts him down, and we're 2 tanks up. Make that 3 tanks up as we head on now towards the sort of centre or the south east part of this map, and we're going to try and take out this T28 HTC. I go for the weak point, which is the rounded sort of viewports on the side. I think that 1357 put me off a little bit. It's not his fault, he probably didn't know that I was aiming, or he's just trying to escape getting shot himself, so I can't be too angry. And now we are 4 tanks up. It's 6 versus 2, and now it's sort of all about the end game and getting as much out of this game as possible. And if this game ended now, it wouldn't be a horrific result, it wouldn't be the best. This is kind of an average kind of game you can get in this tank. You don't have to put too many shells in to have a good damage total and make some nice silver, but I want to try and push this total up even more. This batch at 12T gets tracked in front of me, and I can't say no to finishing him off, taking our damage total to just over 3,000 damage at 3,068. So now we come up against this T69. He's already fired 2 to 3 shells. I was prepared to die here just to get one more shelling, because I was almost certain, 99% that we were going to win this even if I died, but it looks like this T69 is dry, and we make a little wiggle and finish with a last shell into that T69 and picking up a decent result in this tank. So that's a victory, yay for once. We get 5 kills, finish MVP, 3.6k direct damage, 560 assistance, high caliber, first class, and 1683 experience. I probably already said that, but yeah, I never know what I'm saying anyway. So we're going to head on into the third and final replay of the video, and I'll talk you through that as well. So see you there shortly. So we're now into the third and final replay of the video, and we're here on Mediocre Pass, and unfortunately for me it's a large open map. That means that it's going to take me a while to get into position, but it does have some nice ridge lines where I'm able to utilise my gun depression and this hard hitting gun, and I think that brings me on to say that this tank is a relatively good tank for maybe a new player or a slightly less experienced player who doesn't want to rush in a light tank, get themselves killed within the first sort of 3 to 5 minutes of the battle, who wants to learn how to play heavy tanks, and someone who wants something that's a little bit more forgiving in terms of armour. Unfortunately, the gun might be frustrating for a newer player, but you don't have to get too many shots in to make a decent profit and have a decent game. And obviously, if you have a good commander and you choose the right equipment, then you can make this tank work. And yeah, it's more forgiving. It's quite like the 50 TP prototype, like I said in the first replay. It hits hard, it doesn't hit as quick as other tanks, but it means that you don't have to expose yourself for too long. You can learn some positions on maps that, you know, you can use good 10 degrees of gun depression on. Makes you learn how to angle your tank to try and bounce damage, all the while you're making silver. So it's actually not too bad for a newer player. Some people might disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine, but in my opinion it is like the 50 TP prototype. It's actually not as bad as people think it is. There are more powerful tanks, and it is extremely expensive for what it is, so you might want to wait. But if you are looking for something, you like British tanks, you know, you like the hold down gameplay and you want to play heavy tanks, then by all means this can be a good tank. And if you're a tank collector, we all know you're going to get this tank anyway, because you can't help yourself, a little bit like me. So we've come up here to the southern flank of Mediocre Pass, and this is kind of the brawling area. This happens in World War II and in Cold War, and we're going to test out the accuracy here and see if we can get a shot on this Speerpanzer 1C. Fortunately, he obliges, comes up on the ridgeline. The accuracy holds true for us, and we get another shot, picking up a kill and taking our damage total to 1,000, while also blocking 220 damage. And this is a good location if there isn't any artillery, and fortunately for me there isn't any artillery. I'm able to use these rocks and use this relatively sort of flat, low profile heavy tank to hide my weaker hull and, you know, slightly weaker lower plate and my sides, and get shots into these tanks that are advancing down the south. I'm trying to use tanks that have spotted these tanks in front of me, my friendlies that have spotted these tanks, to get shots into the side of these tanks, the enemy tanks, as they approach, and it's working well so far. A bit risky there firing and knowing I was going to get spotted in front of an ISU 152, But it worked out for us, and we're going to now try and get around the side of this heavy tank while also keeping an eye on the ISU 152. I know I can swing him around quick enough to take him out if needs be. We're going to get a nice shot on the move there into the 1001p, and that's where the run and gun commander skill comes in handy. It does help even with a tank that is inaccurate like this one. So already you can see that we've picked up 2.1k damage. We haven't even put too many rounds in this game, and we're already having a decent game. You can be quite aggressive in an all sort of tier 8 matchup, especially when there's tier 6s and 7s in it, or quite a lot of tier 6s and 7s. And the added bonus of having no artillery does help this tank out a lot. As you can see, we're struggling here to get over the ground as quick as we'd like to, but that does allow us time to think and sort of manoeuvre and try and pick the right positions. In faster tanks, sort of mediums and lights, it can be quite easy for newer players and less experienced players to rush in and get themselves killed, and I even do it. Even veteran and experienced players do that from time to time, get themselves into positions that they shouldn't have done. But as you can see there, run and gun works for us again. We get a shot on the move into that Trailblazer, picking up another shot worth of damage and another kill, and we're heading towards the base now because it is being captured, and I'm fed up of being base capped when the game is only 5 minutes old. We're going to try and take out this huntsman with the aid of this friendly light tank. This is the frustrating bit here where you are just waiting to reload, but use rocks, use hard cover like I'm doing here, pop out and get shots in. From this range, even with the poor shell velocity, auto aim in there isn't too bad. It's still advisable to manually aim, but I'm lazy. And here you can see how long it takes for the shell to reach the target. It's sort of you fire and you don't know whether you've hit, you don't know if you're going to get damaged or what for quite a while, and if tanks are even further away than that CS-53, it can be quite funny to see the shells fly in. So we get some nice shots into that CS-53. We've picked up 3.6k damage and 330 assistance, and just by repositioning and relocating, with the aid of our teammates, we've turned the tide of this battle, and it's another decent result. And this tank is really good for picking up kills and finishing off tanks that are low health, whereas some tanks might only have 220, 250 alpha damage, 300, and if someone's sort of 400-ish, maybe even 500, and you can roll high, you can finish them off, and that's really nice. You get a lot of kills in this tank compared to some other heavies, or I found that I do anyway personally. And yeah, you don't have to get too many shots in to have a good game, like I said, and it does hit hard. You know, you're slapping tanks that are 1-2 tiers above you for sort of 400 to 500 damage sometimes, and it is brilliant. So we get our last shell in there, picking up just over 4k damage, 534 assistance, blocking 220. That's another victory. We finish with a top gun, that's 6 kills. We make a nice profit of 152,000 silver, high caliber, and yeah, you can see people are paying this well because that's only a second class. This is a fairly decent tank. It's a tank that people are going to sleep on. It's probably not as popular as it should be, but it is extremely expensive. So I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope you're all having a great week, and I hope you all enjoy the wheelies if you want to play them, and if you want to take them out, load the HE, because the tier 8 premium that's coming out this week is paper thin. So load HE, and I wish you all the best. So thanks so much for your support. We've got surpassed 400 subscribers now, and it's excellent to see. So on towards 500. So until next time, I'll see you on the battlefield, and bye for now.